So maybe if you're being radically honest with yourself, you see that you have a pattern of dating people's potential. And maybe you start off thinking, oh, there's some red flags here and there, but I think that over time, I can help that person fix those things. Or I know they're going through a hard time where they don't seem fully available, but that'll change as we develop feelings for each other. But more often than not, that never actually happens. Well, have you ever wondered why it is that you're drawn to the potential of a person, especially if it's an avoidant partner? Because guess what? A lot of the same types of people who are drawn to avoidant attachment styles also have a pattern or theme of dating people's potential. And it can be heartbreaking because oftentimes you'll give your all, hoping eventually in time the relationship can become what you hope and are desperately seeking for. But if you don't learn these three things we are going to talk about here today, you may find yourself going from relationship to relationship, experiencing a lack of fulfillment, frustration, and even confusion. And at worst, you may even think that it's you that's the problem. So let's talk about why it is that you actually date the avoidance potential and what it is that you can do to start changing this right now. So first and foremost, and some of these things may actually surprise you a little bit, but there are psychological reasons that we date people's potential. And there are three major pieces that will play a role in this. And I'm going to take you through those three parts. But then at the end, I'm going to actually take you through a really profound exercise that I'm hoping will give you a really important reality check. And maybe you'll feel a little shocked going through the exercise with me here today. So the first reason that we date people's potential, and really this can be any attachment style's potential, but oftentimes it's with somebody who's clearly showing that they're not necessarily available for a relationship at this time, is that there's a lack of understanding. What do I mean by a lack of understanding? Well, you probably are in a position where you've never sat down and evaluated what it is that you're truly looking for in a partner. And that really breaks into a couple of major categories. It breaks into number one, your non-negotiables. These are really your deal breakers and the things that you never will want in a partner. Deal breakers or non-negotiables are different for each person. So for example, somebody who grew up in a family who saw one of their parents, God forbid, pass away from lung cancer as a smoker, maybe one of their non-negotiables as an adult is I will not date somebody who smokes, right? And that can be different for somebody else. Or for some person, being vegan or not vegan, or hunting or not hunting. Or for some people, it's, I know for me at this point in my life, like obviously I'm married and have a husband, I've been in a relationship for like almost 10 years, but if I were dating, right, I know for me, one of my non-negotiables would be I will not date somebody who isn't willing to work through conflict, right? Who isn't willing to like have conversations to solve things instead of just building up resentment in relationships. So non-negotiables will be unique to everybody. A really obvious one for a lot of people is like somebody says they want to have kids, somebody says they don't want to have kids. So you can sort of pull from there. Like, what are your non-negotiables? What would be the things for you that are absolute deal breakers in relationships? And it may sound when we talk about this like, oh yeah, that's really self-explanatory. Like, obviously, I'm not going to date somebody who has a non-negotiable, but I can tell you as somebody who spent more than 10 years working with people and in private practice, people would date people with their non-negotiables all the time, all the time. I would see this far too frequently. Somebody's like, oh yeah, they'll just change eventually. They'll quit smoking. They will become a vegan. They will whatever it is, they will change their mind on kids. I mean, I've seen countless, like hundreds of people literally go through that process. So please take the time to map that out so that it's there, it's clear for you, and it holds you to a certain degree of accountability rather than that just being this like background thing where you never really think it through. And then you think, oh yeah, they say they don't want to have kids. Who cares? We'll come back to that. Like if it's on paper or if it's like clear in your mind and you've made it conscious, you're just going to have a heightened sense of accountability behind it. The other part of this, and this is still on point number one, we have three major reasons, is knowing your standards. Okay. So your standards and needs, you can kind of think as going hand in hand. They're either traits or qualities or needs that you're looking for to be met in a relationship. The difference between a non-negotiable and a standard is that you may be flexible in one or two of those things. So with a standard, you might be like, oh, I want somebody, for example, who travels all the time, who loves to travel as much as I do. Let's pretend. And this is made up for me because I like traveling, okay, but it's not a big thing for me. But let's just pretend that I'm somebody who loves to travel. And, if I meet somebody and let's pretend I'm dating and they are in a position where they're like, they They're okay on traveling. They're kind of like neutral. And they're okay. They're open to doing things and they love the experience, but they also maybe are a little bit of a homebody and they don't want to travel more than like twice a year. If I see like, wow, this person has all these other amazing things, there's no deal breakers. They've got all these other standards that are really important to me. They meet so many of my needs in the relationship. I'll be flexible on that, right? It's not like you have to sit down and have this extremely rigid list. So there are things that help you when you're looking at your needs or standards. There are things that help you be intentional about what you're looking for and get clear, but they don't have to be things that are literally going to make or break a relationship. You're willing to be flexible on some of those things. And I think that we want to create this hybrid approach when it comes to our self awareness and understanding of what we're looking for, of being able to be intentional and clear, but also not treating dating like it's a job interview, not treating dating like every single little box on the list needs to be checked or else I have to leave the relationship immediately. That just ends up being you're being a perfectionist and flaw finding a lot of the time. So you want to make sure that you're in that space where you're intentional and clear and you have your high standards and you uphold them, but it's not something where you develop an attitude of being rigid around it because that will harm your dating experience as well. So we want that healthy middle balance. Now, that's the first point, right? Is that you want to have this understanding because so many people end up dating and getting into relationships based on usually like the same two reasons. Oh, I was attracted to them and we had a good time. Okay, that's not like a great place to be picking a life partner from. And I often give people the analogy that that would be similar to like you try to look for jobs and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to like go through the first 10 jobs on Indeed and apply to them. And whichever one sort of seems fun, I'll go for. You're way less likely to end up in a job that actually fulfills you if you just apply to the first 10 jobs. It's like you go on a date, oh, okay, yeah, I like this person, it kind of clicked. That's not like the level of intention that's going to bring you the relationships of your dreams, okay? So I want you to get clear there. And what ends up happening is if you don't know what it is that you're looking for, then of course you're going to date somebody's potential because you're on autopilot, right? You don't even know, you're not sitting there, you're not vetting properly in the dating stage either, which is like a huge part. When we know what we're looking for, we can vet. And I'm going to go down a rabbit hole still here on point number one, which is just when we are dating, the dating stage of relationships is designed to be the vetting stage. Okay. It's supposed to be the stage that we like get to know somebody. It does not mean that on date number one, you should come in with your like 24 standards memorized and your two non-negotiables and take this person through like a series of rapid fire questions as if they are on a job interview to get to the bottom of things. What it means is that usually you want like 10 really good standards or needs that you're clear about. And then, you want to have your non-negotiables really clear. And then what you're doing is like your first date, you have fun with somebody, you sit down, you see if there's a connection, you just sort of see if there's that spark. And then on proceeding dates, if you do think that this could be somebody worth spending time with and investing in, you ask one or maybe two questions per date that are designed to get to the bottom of your standards and non-negotiables. And so, for example, if it were me going back to think something that would be a non-negotiable for me is like, I want to make sure that I can move through conflict with somebody. Conflict is something that brings us stronger because we hash it out and we work through it rather than that drives us apart. And it's easy to have those conversations in a healthy way. And so, I would be asking somebody maybe on like date number 3, hey, like, how do you usually operate when you're in an argument with somebody or a disagreement? Do you talk it out? Do you kind of just brush it off? What's your way of operating? And I would just bring it up like light of heart kind of conversation. And that for me is like, am I going to keep dating this person and spending my time with this person if there's such a clear non-negotiable? And if somebody was like, oh, I don't like talking about things. I just think conflict's silly. I'm not willing to do it. Okay, well, that's not a good sign. Even even if you think conflict's silly, conflict is a necessary and very normal part of a relationship. But how you do it is healthy or unhealthy, right? So you'd be vetting by getting to the bottom of these things. Okay, so that's all under point number one. If you don't know and don't have that self-understanding or self-awareness, you're not dating intentionally, you're on autopilot, and then you can't vet, which means very likely when you're on autopilot, you're just like hoping that the things you don't like will eventually change. And your bar for why you're getting into a relationship with somebody is really, really low if you're in a position where you're just dating somebody based on, oh, I'm attracted to them and we have a good time. Okay. So I really can't stress or highlight that enough. Again, the last thing, and I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but for anybody listening, the last thing I just want to say one more time is you're not going to go onto Indeed or wherever you apply for jobs and just apply to the first 10 jobs. Like whatever's just popped up in order on your screen. No, you're going to know what your skills are. You're going to know what job you're looking for, what kind of environment you want to be in, what pay range you want. And you're going to go scout and look intentionally so that you can create the greatest chance for fulfillment. Dating really shouldn't be that much different. Number two, you may have deeply unmet needs. And this is pretty shocking, but when we have deeply unmet needs, what we will often do, okay, is when we can't get those needs met in reality, our mind breaks into the fantasy realm or into the memory realm. So let's see how many of you have seen yourselves doing this because this is the most common one I would see with clients over the years. Let's say you grew up and you felt unseen as a child. Okay. Let's say that like parents were busy, couldn't really ever be present, and you always wanted to be seen. You wanted them to give you attention or their presence. And let's say that you then start dating in your adult life and you may find yourself in the fantasy world imagining that this person that you're kind of interested in, you've been on 3 dates with them. Oh my gosh, you're doing something you love. Maybe you're painting or you're singing or you're doing some hobby that you feel good at and competent at. And as you're doing those things in your mind, you're like, oh, you're imagining them seeing you and seeing how good you are at it or how skilled you are at it. Well, what that actually is your mind, because your subconscious mind does this, it basically projects into fantasies of the future or memories of the past. I'll give you an example for that one too, of this person seeing you. And then you build up all of these unique ideas and things that are happening between you and that person in the fantasy realm. Maybe they're really validating to you and they see how special you are. Maybe you travel the world together and explore. And now your mind is not vetting the person in front of you. It is connecting to the fantasy of the person you're building in your imagination. This is actually something that people do all the time. It's extremely common, and we do it the most where we have the deepest needs that are unmet. Okay. So, usually, if you don't feel seen at all, and especially if you're not meeting your own needs and making yourself feel seen, then you will project those things onto other people as a means of simulating getting them met. Why? Because, interestingly enough, when you simulate them getting met, you actually feel emotions. You actually have neurochemical reactions. You feel good when you're in the fantasy. We also do this with memories of the past. So if you've ever seen somebody, maybe you felt your ex, for example, maybe they didn't meet so many of your needs. It was an unhealthy relationship. You're glad you're out of that relationship, but maybe there was one thing that they did. And who knows what it was? Maybe it was they were really validating or they built you up or whatever it was. And maybe you find yourself fantasizing about memories of the past, your ex, because you're actually fantasizing about the need that's not being met. And it's a way of trying to get closer to the need. And it's something the mind will do. When you build more of a relationship to somebody in the fantasy realm than in reality, you date their potential because you are literally building an image of them rather than seeing the person themselves. And after I tell you this third point here, I'm going to take you through an exercise to break out of that if you're caught in that cycle, because it is one of the most, challenging things to go through and challenging things to get over because you're left thinking, why am I hurting so much? Oftentimes when you are trying to get over somebody and the relationship hasn't been working, oftentimes you're actually trying to get over the fantasy you have of the person more than the reality of the person. And that's why it takes so long to get over is because you're thinking like, oh, why can't I get over this person here? Well, because I was more connected to the fantasy. And in the fantasy, somebody can be idealized. Somebody can be perfect. And now I think I'll never find somebody like that again. But if I looked at the person in reality, I might have a different experience. Okay, so before I tell you point number three, which goes hand in hand with point number two, before I tell you point number three is if you want to do a deeper dive into this, it's actually a concept called limerence, where we really build this rich fantasy bond and oftentimes we'll have a really hard time getting over somebody. And if you want to get over somebody way quicker, there's a way to get over limerence and how to actually unpack it and work through it so that you can get over the person who wasn't able to be there and support you. And you can check out, I have a full course, fully free, just for a limited time. We do this promotion like once a year, and you can go into all of the course at the personal development school. But in this case, in your dashboard, you want to type in limerence, Limerence. I'll put it in the description below. And it's how to get over somebody that you've been in limerence with fast, really fast, because it helps unpack all of these nuances. So you can check that out fully for free. It gives you access to all of the courses at the personal development school for free. You'll probably be able to get through like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 if you're a hustler and you're really in it. Each course is like 2 hours long, give or take, sometimes an hour and a half, sometimes 2.5 hours. So they're courses you can really get breakthroughs from. And it just depends how much time you have. Anyways, fully for free. It also comes with all of our live events. You can come into webinars, ask me questions. I'm in there tons throughout the week, 3 days a week. And we have other individuals there so that there's a webinar almost every day. So anyways, you can check that out. if you want to do a deeper dive into this, just for a limited time. Now, the last thing here, okay, I want to see how many of you have done this. Let me know in the comments below if you see yourself doing this in the past. One of the other things that we'll do, why we date somebody's potential, is we end up in a situation where we chain ourselves to them because of limiting beliefs we have about ourselves or other people. Watch this. Listen to how much this would keep me locked into a relationship with an ex, not getting over them, constantly still trying to date them and change them. Okay. If I believed nobody will ever love me like this again, I will be alone forever if I leave this relationship. Everybody will always abandon me anyways. I'm not good enough to find the partner of my dreams. I'm not worthy of a better relationship. A lot of times we have these types of stories, if not many other stories, that if you're telling yourself these things on autopilot, you're believing them, okay? And the moment you believe them, you're living in the reality where that is true. That is a truth. And now, of course, you don't leave. Of course, you date somebody's potential and you keep hoping that you can change them. It doesn't mean, I want to be really clear, it doesn't mean that people can't change. People can absolutely change. People change profoundly and beautifully, and I get to see it all the time. And so many of you have been on this channel, and I see in the comments these amazing shares about how you've changed. It doesn't mean that people can't change. What it does mean is that you need to be seeing if somebody's actually putting in the work to do so, okay? And in case you missed it, you can now reserve your spot and get more than a 50% early bird discount for our live relationship coach certification program. This 12-week program gives you the opportunity to build a new career, create your own thriving coaching practice, help your community, and secure your financial future full of abundance with a growing waitlist of clients. And the best part is that you get to spend a whole bunch of time with me as I teach you exclusive subconscious reprogramming tools and help you learn how to change somebody's attachment style from insecurely attached to securely attached so that you can truly help create transformation in people's lives and have a wait list of people waiting to work with you. We also have an entire business week about how to build funnels, systems, and to really build a thriving and busy practice. You can sign up using the link down below the video, and I can't wait to see you there. If we're dating somebody's potential and we're kind of aware of it, but I'm sitting here and I'm doing the work and that person's sitting there and they're doing the work and we're working together to grow together, that could actually be a really healthy thing. But if we pretend instead that I'm sitting here and I'm doing the work and that person's doing absolutely nothing, and yet I keep connecting them into the fantasy realm and I believe that I'm never going to find somebody like them again, and then of course you're going to say dating somebody's potential and not seeing the results that you're looking for. So 3 really important tips. Last thing, if you want a fun little exercise, a little cycle breaking exercise, you can do this. Okay. You can sit down, you can write out your top 8 to 10 standards on a page. I want somebody who is present in the relationship. I want somebody who can work through conflicts. I want somebody who's doing the work. I want somebody who, invests in themselves. I want somebody, whatever your standards are. Okay. Sit down, write them out, the things you're really, really looking for, and just write them all in one line. Okay. And then underneath, write your non-negotiables, the deal breakers, things you're not okay with. Then draw a line down your page. Okay. And you can pause this recording, obviously, to do it. Draw a line down your page, and as if you have 2 columns now, right? So you're drawing a line down your page. You have 2 columns. And now in the second column there, I want you to rate how much the person you're currently dating, or if this is like a recent ex that you're trying to get over, how much they truly have those things from 1 to 10. And the vast majority of the time, if you're somebody who dates somebody's potential, you'll see that when you actually write out what you're looking for and then you score the person in your life to see if they're showing up for those things, they usually score extremely low. And it might be surprising. And it will be a reality check exercise. It'll be something that helps you, A, realize, okay, maybe I'm seriously not dating the right person. And B, helps you get over somebody a little faster. It's one little exercise. There's lots of other great ones, but that's one that can just help move the needle a little bit. I'd love to hear your answers to that exercise in the comments below too. I will come back and read them. That is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to this channel if you're liking this content. Share this video with somebody who could benefit from it, or like this video. That's also helpful for me if you want to help me boost the algorithms and get this information to more people. And I really appreciate you stopping by and hope to see you in future videos.